So welcome to the Dave T Construction Podcast. And today we have Melody Gangi and Claire Brown. Welcome, Melody and Clara.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for having us. We're super excited.
Well, same here. So we'll get back to how we met in just a second here, but just a little background. So House of Four Design, you do some amazing design work, and I know you're doing some incredible things with the business that's coming up that I want to talk about. So Melody is the principal and founder of House of Four Design, and Claire's the lead designer. So excited to have you both on. So again, going back, this is a industry thing. You were in town for the Sub-Zero had their grand opening. So speak to that, kind of what inspired you to come down to Scottsdale just to see what we had going on with Sub-Zero here.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us on, Brad. We've always loved and enjoyed listening to all your podcasts and learned so much from them. So it's such a honor to be invited by you. The Sub-Zero Wolf event was such an amazing event, and we were lucky enough to be invited by Sub-Zero and Wolf, and we are a huge fan of their brand. We love to include them as much as possible in our projects, and we're excited to see their gorgeous showroom in Scottsdale.
And I think a big reason we wanted to come down for, there's the obvious reason we're always big supporters of showrooms and products and brands that we use all the time and believe in, but definitely to come and meet people like you and other designers that we know there's a bit of a design industry and community in Scottsdale that we kind of lack in Las Vegas. So anytime we can get out and meet people that are like us, we love to.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to bring that up, Claire, because I think one of the biggest challenges, and I'm sure maybe you both can relate to this, is that for me, when I started my company, and this is pre-social media, it wasn't really big at the time. It's really tough to understand, like, how can I network with other builders? How can I understand how to run my business, right? There was just a lot of things that I just didn't know. I wish I knew at the time. I didn't know how to collaborate or understand this, whereas now it's more accessible. And what I really love about Sub-Zero Wolf is they're really good about having the showroom. They bring people in. They have designers design all these vignettes. There's a ton of collaboration in the design community. So you mentioned this. I mean, difference of Vegas design community as opposed to Scottsdale. Like, has that been a struggle just for you to collaborate with other designers? And how have you changed that, maybe being limited to an extent there in Vegas?
Yeah, I think there is a limitation in Las Vegas, and I think that's something that Claire and I both agree on, that we would love to bring our community together, because Vegas is now a big city and we're all busy and hardworking and doing amazing things. But I think it's important that we come together and serve our clients and, help each other. I think I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of amazing designers through Instagram and have started a lot of friendships through that social platform, and I'm super appreciative of that, and got to meet a lot of them. So going up to Scottsdale and meeting other designers for an event like Sub-Zero and Wolf is always an opportunity that we want to take advantage of.
So how does that differ, meeting in person for you and building those relationships as opposed to maybe some of the online stuff, through Instagram and other social media platforms?
I just think it's great when you can, have someone in the industry that you can reach out to. For example, we were just so lucky enough to be able to attend Design Camp, and there were all designers, from beginner designers right through to designers that have had their firms for 20 to 30 years. And you never stop learning. That's the one fun thing about our business, is making it better, improving, and learning new things that you can incorporate in your business to make the process even better, right, and stronger. So having those relationships is important for us. And, it's a fun job at the end of the day. It's super hard work and challenging, but at the end of the day, we do it because we really are passionate about it and love it.
Yeah, and I think it was a full circle moment for Melody too. You mentioned, she had been friends with Lindsay Brooke Design, who puts on Design Camp, friends on Instagram for years. And she said,
Yep.
I remember when she had 10 followers and I had 10 followers, and we were just trying to figure things out together. And Melody mentioned that she said, how'd you get that first job? And it's just funny now. And Melody said how cool all these years later, now she's really kind of a pioneer in the design industry for sharing that education and sharing the cliff notes on how to get there.
Absolutely, so
yeah.
I've had Lindsay on the podcast, right? And she's super amazing, super inspiring. She's inspired me. I'll get into that on a couple things. But speak to Design Camp. For those listening that may not understand what it is, exactly what is the intent, the format, how did you become aware, and why was it really important that both of you attended?
Yeah, well, it's so funny because Design Camp, they're super successful. And when they put out their tickets because I think they can only do so many sessions a year. ID Co and Lindsay both host the design camp. They go super fast. I think Lindsay told me the first one I think was sold out in like 30 seconds. So when the most recent one that we attended was advertised through Instagram, we saw it on actually Studio McGee's website because Shay McGee was a keynote speaker. We immediately clicked on, and we were so lucky and happy that we were able to get tickets. But Design Camp is, I would say, it welcomes anybody and everybody to that you're going to learn. Even if you're not a designer or maybe you're in the retail business, that's also a way to learn because they'll cover all topics from systems and processes to running a business to hiring to growing your business to social media. So there's so many, subjects and avenues that you might not feel confident on, or you can perhaps improve on, that they're sharing this information. And honestly, I just think it's amazing that they do this and give out so much, because for years I think it was pretty closed off, and it was so hard for designers to figure out how to run a business. There's no school that says, okay, this is how you run your design business, right? So I think it's amazing, and I definitely encourage anybody that hasn't attended it, if they have the time to attend it, please go for it, because I think you're going to get so much out of it.
So when you were at the camp, Melody and Claire, I mean, you mentioned one thing I want to not pick apart but focus on is the confidence, right? Because I think when I started my business, there were a lot of things I lacked confidence in. Maybe it's my sales process, my systems, pricing, right? Understanding like value of what I was worth and what I could do. And so over the years, as you understand your business and as you understand, different metrics and cost analysis, it's a lot easier to be more confident when you're pricing something and communicating timelines and setting an expectation with clients. Like that's a huge part of it. And unfortunately, unless you've made these mistakes where you go down and you've made these mistakes and now you can stay on confidence because you're like, well, I've already made that mistake. Ideally, you can learn from others that made those mistakes or at least be educated. So, how impactful was that, just being there with all these other designers that now are teaching and are living the business just as you are?
Super impactful, especially for me. I do run the business for House of Four, and I'm always, trying to keep on track with, am I pricing out? Am I competitive? Am I, doing everything right there? So I do think that it was really good to hear from other designers how they charge for their business, and if we were to change it, here's another way to look at it and to maybe try that out and analyze it. I do think that's super important because you do have to evolve with the times and what's going on and what you're doing for your business. There's some projects that take years and there's others that don't take as long. So you do have to keep that in mind as a business owner.
Yeah. Another thing that stood out to me a lot at Design Camp was it is a business, and you could tell people that were there because they had a natural talent and they were trying to figure out how to make this a business. Maybe they didn't come with business skills. Melody definitely came into the design business with natural talent and some background in running a successful business. So that was a good jumping off point. And there was a lot of women that we met there that were all about the business, and it was very clear. And then they couldn't figure out why they weren't getting repeat clients, and they couldn't figure out why their Instagram wasn't blowing up with the pictures they were taking. It's because they were more focused on how do I make this a successful business monetarily, as opposed to this is my passion. People come to me and want me to make their space beautiful, and I also make money at it. So that was an interesting dynamic I noticed a lot from women on all levels, people that had been doing it for 10 years and people that had been doing it for one. You could tell intentions were a big differentiator.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Claire, to take this route, this route from the marketing side. It's interesting, and Melody, you spoke to this, that there's one thing to understand how to run your business. There's another thing if you're a great craftsman in the construction side, or you're a great designer, right? You have an eye and you're super talented. But to connect the two, to understand, okay, there's the talent side and then there's the business side, right? How do we correlate and make those match? And then Claire mentioned the emotional side. And this is, I think, what many of us miss in how we broadcast our business and how we market it. How do we create this emotional journey? How do we create people that are selling our brand that aren't on our payroll, silent salespeople and this is how you connect. And I've seen this very successful in other businesses, but for designers, how do you, inspire that clientele that's watching House of Four to say, wow, they get it. I want them to do my house. Someday I'm going to have them do my house because they inspire me. And, when you connect on that level, that really changes the outlook in the business. And I'm sure from there, as long as you have the structure behind it, then you can now build on that.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle at the end of the day. And Melody, this is her life, which she always has been very true to her brand, which is her personal home being the jumping off point. And then we can make this happen for you in your home as well, and I am, not as far along in my life as Melody, but I look up to her and I want to have a house like that. And I want to create a home that is beautiful for the holidays. And I want to have 3 different pictures, just depending on the season and the tablescape. And that stuff makes people feel special when you can invite people into your home. That's why our tagline is from our house to your home, because it really is. It's we eat, sleep, and breathe this. And I think you can tell in our projects.
Absolutely. I do remember when I'm actually from South Africa. So growing up in South Africa, there was not a lot of TV. And when I first immigrated, I watched a lot of TV. And I remember watching Oprah Winfrey. She was pretty big back then. And I saw an interview that she was interviewing Nate Berkus. And I think it was his first interview on her show. And she kind of made him a household name, I think. And they were talking about how changing, a space and designing it and giving it that feel really changes how a person gets up in the morning and starts their day. And I remember listening to that and going, that's exactly what I want to do. So I do absolutely believe in that. It's important that we love to get back to our clients and show them how we can really change their lives and make it better with designing their spaces.
I love that you share that, Melody. It's interesting because I'm a huge fan of interior designers, as you know, like the interior design community and what they do for me as a builder and, the success of our company and projects. I can definitely pinpoint, certain designers and what they've done. But I think more importantly, when I'm speaking to clients and, you mentioned this is a pain point from the customer. A customer will say, hey, Brad, you know what? I know what I like. Do I need a designer, right? And what's interesting about that is I've seen this success play firsthand. It's one thing, you can say, well, I know your home down the road, will have a better ROI. It'll sell better, having this beautiful home. But something that's often missed is the inspiration, right? People that come home and they're inspired by their home. And I saw this really importantly through COVID, right? Through 2020 and 21, people that love their home, they love the layout, they love the finishes, they were inspired. There was a lot of distraction. There's a lot of, people that were down, a lot of political distress out there, but these people had these beautiful homes that inspired them. And there's something to be said about that. And that's really, it sounds like the core of who both of you are and what inspires you to do what you do today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. We love seeing that. And, you as a designer, we all say this, the reveals are so exciting for us to see their reaction. And it's hard to keep secrets from our clients because it's a long process, the remodel process. But when there's a few clients that we've got to experience that, and I remember during COVID, we were finishing up a project of a really young couple, super nice to work with, and they cried, when we did the walkthrough. And it just, for us, it was a very scary time. We didn't know what was next going to happen, and the shortages and everything that were going on. So it was just so inspirational to see that. And I think that made us want to keep going on after seeing that. So,
for sure. Well, I find it funny, even during the demo process, just because we see it in our minds, how it's going to be at the very end. And sometimes clients have a hard time envisioning that. But we'll walk in and a wall's come down and we're like, there it is. And the client's looking at us like we're nuts. And we're like, no, this is all the stepping stones until you get to that final product. It's all exciting. It's every phase of it is, because you're watching an evolution of something that's going to be there for potentially 50 years. If no one ever remodeled it again, is it going to hold up? Is it going to make somebody happy? Is it going to stay fresh? So
what's interesting about that, Clara, how often do you think I as a designer, you're thinking end of mind, right? But you both do such a good job with the marketing and the social media, which is the connection point. And so do you often think about, as you're going through these designs, like this is an image, this is a shot for later, right? This is going to be an angle. How does that play a role, especially as you're looking, to inspire your clientele and especially, your end portfolio?
Oh, it's everything. During design, where we can see it, we can see the final photograph. I mean, we know that it's not only going to be amazing in person, but it is going to photograph well. And that's, I would say the number one marketing tool that we live by. it's almost number one, I would say, beyond just having happy clients,
We're always waiting for there's always final details that we're waiting for to come in. And sometimes it just takes too long. So we'll go ahead and we'll schedule our photographer and bring in those final details ourselves. So we can start getting the shoots done. And then we'll go back a second time if there are some major elements that we want to reshoot.
Right. If it looks perfect to the naked eye, but not to us. Yeah. Sometimes we have to say, okay, well, those window treatments are not coming for 6 months, but everything else is perfect. And, it'll just be, we can come back and reshoot when everything is. But really kind of staying current, I think is important. Projects we've done this year, we want to definitely showcase those so people aren't saying, oh, well, it's just the same couple projects, so it's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's interesting. I always think about, in our business, I'm sure it's the same for you as a designer, as a contractor. There's a lot of ups and downs, right? There's things that really inspire us for our team. We have a lot of wins. And then at the same time, like the reality is you're dealing with, lack of labor, lack of material. I mean, you alluded to this, Claira. You may have a house beautifully done and you're waiting for the window drapery or maybe a sofa or settee or something that hasn't come in yet. And so there's these like emotional roller coaster with the client and ourselves. And so, you mentioned that, when you see a client get emotional, right, as they come in and they see, the work that you've done and the heart that's put into it, what is the most enjoyable part about your career as a designer?
Obviously seeing their reaction and just being really proud of our team and everything that we've accomplished together, because these projects, a lot of them take many years now. And we are lucky enough to have clients that are patient and hang in there with us, because it's a very emotional process for them as well. So once we finally get to the end, the finish line, it's obviously very fulfilling. And makes you want to do it again over and over. It's so funny because we have a couple of clients that really, really enjoy the process. And even though they're busy professionals, we can tell, like, they really do love it. And we have a couple of clients that are like, well, maybe I'll sell my house and do it over again. And I'm always like, are you sure? It took 2 to 3 years to get the final, piece into your home. So I think both for us and the clients, it's important that, we're all on the same page there, because it's a long process.
Yeah. And for me, putting something on paper that came from our minds and it was just sort of a inspired thought, and having that become a reality, that is by far the most rewarding part for myself. It's really crazy too, because a lot of design work, people think we're running around and looking at fabric samples all day long. And the reality is there's a lot of, AutoCAD drawings and all these things, photoshopping and redlining, architectural drawings and all these other things that go into it. So kind of taking it off, pen and paper and making it a real kind of tangible, livable space that has its own feeling. That's the rewarding part. It's what I imagine, like authors that see their books turn into movies, like that has to be the same feeling.
See, I love that you shared that, Melody and Claire, because it's interesting. It's one thing to sit there and I could look at your Instagram page and see these amazing photos, and from the outside, you're like, oh, that's beautiful, very inspiring, but not understanding the blood, sweat, and tears, right, that goes behind the scenes. And speak to the complexity. You kind of alluded to this. Your profession is way more complex than picking fabric samples, as the example you gave, right? And as you're thinking budget, right, and timelines and material shortages, and then the contractor that has to like build your vision and get there. I mean, speak to the complexity of like the day-to-day of things that, bring a challenge and struggle to the business as you work to get to that end goal of that photography and amazing video at the in that presentation to the client.
Yeah, absolutely. There's hundreds of steps involved on the design side, and then on the actual installation, the construction side of the project, there's literally thousands of steps, and we're there right from the beginning to the very end. And for years later, we still have clients from 2019, before COVID, that were still finalizing details and adding to their projects. So it's a long drawn out process, and that's why I always do, when I talk to our clients, I do let them know, this is not going to happen tomorrow. That's impossible. I wish it could. I wish I could click my fingers and do that. And, are you ready to go through this process with us? Because it's a long one.
Yeah. And it's a dance, even just this morning, we're getting pictures from our contractor saying, hey, in the drawing, you kind of had a soffit here. It doesn't have that already. I can add it. What was the intention there? And, we're sitting there trying to figure out what happened. Well, they had a drop down ceiling treatment that we didn't know if it could be removed or not. So it could be removed. And then we're so grateful that we have contractors that will call and say, hey, did you mean to have this sort of dated thing? We could do it the sort of fresh approach. And we said, absolutely, that's totally would have been our number one pick. Thank you for checking in. So little things like that are happening on project sites all day long, and our clients have no idea. Yeah. And they just walk in and see a beautiful home, and they don't know that we removed the soffit. And if they compared drawings, they would know it was different, but you really wouldn't. It didn't change the integrity of the design. We're there to maintain that throughout the whole process. So that's definitely something like it's a whole dance, and they're not there for half of it,
Yeah, there's a lot of behind the scene conversations going on with our contractors and lots of FaceTime calls, especially early morning. So that's normal.
Those contractors get up too early.
They do.
Yeah, they're like, what time do you want to have a meeting? Our day starts at 6. Yeah. We're like, 9.
Yeah, 9's a good time. But what's interesting is you mentioned that there's such a difference between new construction and remodels too. I mean, remodels, how does that factor in when you're working with the client, setting expectations, even how you price it without sharing specific pricing? But how do you factor in just the complexity of the project, right? Because I would imagine there's going to be more time, from you going through a remodel, as opposed to a new build.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of our remodel projects in the beginning, they did start out small, just really doing the finishes, new cabinetry, new floors, but they really have evolved from 4 years ago. And Clara has been a big part of that, joining my team. She loves to tackle a good floor plan and make it better. And so we have been able to be super creative there and really take some homes and, take some patio and, make it into a gorgeous master suite. We widen hallways, we add bathrooms if need be. So we do a lot of fun things like that. And this year it's been a lot of projects like that. So they sometimes are taking as long as new builds, honestly, because of the process, because everything obviously with additions like that has to go through the city, and there's an architect, there's engineering involved. And that's a process to get through all those steps. And our contractors are going through this with us at the same time. So it's really a full team effort.
Yeah. And we actually, just to speak to your question specifically, we haven't done a new build yet, but these remodels are so involved, and we always laugh. That's going to be the easiest project ever when we have a new build, because it's a fresh slate. Like, really, these remodel projects are, becoming more and more custom. To Melody's point, it basically is a new house at the end of the day, because we're changing everything. And last year, a lot of our remodel projects were just in the exact building footprint that was there, and now we are doing the additions here and the additions there, and it's definitely changed how many hours go into it for sure, and it's probably double. We should probably look at that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because to me, it's a lot more talent to be able to go in. As I've worked with, we've done some pretty extensive renovations, and when I see the architect and designer go through and what you take the current slate and here's our current, template, if you will, that we can work through, and then here's what we're going to make it be. It's really difficult, to envision, how to change floor plans and kitchen layouts and hallways, and, how do you attribute just that knowledge and know-how, Claire? Because that's really complicated, to understand just the structural element and the confines to the existing property as opposed to what you're trying to achieve.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I went to architecture school, so that was what I was trained in academically. Yes, so that I did have a bit of a 4-year cheat sheet there in that education. But really, I have to be honest, in architecture school, AutoCAD was an elective. It wasn't a core, you didn't have to have it for your degree, which is odd.
What?
I know. So I went to the University of San Francisco, and it was an elective, and it wasn't even a whole course on it. It was 2 weeks on AutoCAD, 2 weeks on Photoshop. So I really taught myself everything at my first job. And, I said, oh, I know how to do that. And I didn't. And I just practiced, and I opened their files all day long, and I copied until I figured it out. And I actually think they knew, but they appreciated the gumption. And you really just have to like train yourself to do it. And I'm passionate about it. I was drawing floor plans at 6 years old. Like I always loved that. So that just kind of came natural there. And then, at the end of the day, I'm not a licensed architect, and nor do I care to be at this point. Melody always says I should go ahead and do that extra test to get that done. But it's really not something I want the responsibility for. I really enjoy our relationship with the architect that we work with locally. He's kind of our preferred architect, and he's, very established in town, and people trust him because he's been around for a while, and has no ego, which is great because he'll give us suggestions, but at the end of the day, he's happy to incorporate whatever we want, assuming that it works. Every now and again, he'll say, you cannot remove that whole thing. That is a load-bearing wall. It's holding up the whole house. Yeah. But it just makes you be more creative. I actually think with remodels, it forces you to be a little bit more creative.
And also, we're very lucky to have a partnership with our contractor who obviously is along the way going through all these steps. We're sharing all our designs and our conceptual drawings, and then meetings with the architect too. So like I said, it's a full team because they are complicated. Sometimes, and at the end of the day, the general contractor and architect are liable for everything, and they have to be comfortable with it. So
yeah, and it's really important to have architects and contractors that value you. In Las Vegas, it's kind of funny because we have all the casinos, and you have these big firms that are doing casinos. Yeah, and they get a lot of respect, and it's almost, I wouldn't say looked down upon in town, but it's not considered the same echelon as being a commercial casino designer build firm. But it is a lot of responsibility, and it's a lot of people's money. Like, it's not the $1 billion properties, but people are spending $1.5–2 million to create their dream home. And we take that very seriously. So, yeah, it's a lot. Actually, when we say it out loud, it sounds a lot more involved.
It is.
On the day-to-day, you get in the weeds, but
yeah, and I can appreciate that, just having work on it from my side. So how did you find, the architect you speak of and the contractor, building that relationship? How did that come to fruition? Because we all know that to have a good team and the good experience for the client, they need to have all three parties, coordinated from the beginning, right? It helps you be successful as well.
Absolutely. We got hired to do it's still in progress. Design is complete, but it's under construction. We got hired to do a full remodel with one of our clients, and he had hired the architect before us, and that's how we were introduced to him. And our general contractor also was like right away, like, oh, this guy is great to work with and super easy.
Picks up the phone.
Picks up the phone, really important. So from that point moving forward, we referred him to all our new clients that didn't have an architect and needed one. So that's how that happened.
And we've had other clients who've hired an architect before us, and we actually feel really bad. We have one project where he's still, we had a meeting last week. The house has been demoed for 2 years. And
wait, the house has been demoed for 2 years?
Yes. And it was not, they have one GC doing the build out, our GC doing the finishes, and then they had this architect. He thinks he's all three. He thinks he's the contractor, the designer, and the architect, and the client, actually.
Really? So pretty seamless process, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But we had a walkthrough last week, and he said, I'm thinking a 48-inch fridge will go great here. And we're thinking, we have two 36s, and they've been in town for a year.
Yeah.
Like, you need to, but he didn't respect our trade. He didn't want to look at our drawings and apply that, because he wanted to be kind of in charge. But it just speaks to how important it is to have people that are team players.
A full team, absolutely. And having that communication and respecting, basically who's responsible for what.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe break down this part, because you're working with a lot of different professional entities. You're working with the customer, from a 3-part question here, like what makes the ideal client, right? As you're looking for a client, what makes that ideal scenario? What makes the contractor a good contractor for you, and the architect, right? As you think in a perfect scenario, having all three elements, what are different things that they may do or not do, to help that process?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say probably 100% of our projects that we do are coming through the design firm, House of Four. they're reaching out directly to us, which is great. And so with that, we actually have them set up an appointment with Clara and I to do a design consult, and we meet them at their project really to go over the scope. And they're interviewing us and we're interviewing them, obviously, and lots of questions are answered. We do some education there as far as not really, we let them know we can't give our pricing cost without a design, which is really interesting because a lot of our clients, they're super successful in their own right. They don't understand that, which is, I always find that interesting, you know. So we explain that process, how the process is going to work, and really look at the scope and come back to our office, and we talk it over and decide if this is a project that we think will be great for the team, and then we send over a design proposal. So, I mean, there's many things involved. Obviously, things, you know, time frame has to work. Some sort of a budget that we understand that is realistic starting point at. Also aesthetics, you know, we're assuming that they're reaching out to us because they love our aesthetics, but sometimes, you know, maybe they just came across us over Google or something. So we like to make sure we're on the same page there. Obviously personalities. And I think that's a process through experience. I've learned a lot running this business for several years now. I used to say yes to every single client, and now I've learned that, you know, it really does need to be a match, and it's okay to say no if you feel it's not going to work out and they're not going to be the ideal client for you. So all of those, I wouldn't say boxes, but they kind of do have to check off, and it has to feel good, and then we will send them our proposal and go from there and see if they're interested in working with us.
Yeah, and the archetype really is, we've found the secret sauce. Every single client that we love, it's usually a couple. It's usually they both have their own passions and their own things that they work on, and then they trust a professional to do what they do best, because a lot of them are the professionals that are the best in their field, and they see value in that. So for us, that's a box that we don't always make sure is checked, which sometimes backfires, but now we're pretty stern on making sure that those boxes are checked, because it's a marriage, you know. We're in bed with these people for sometimes years, so it's important to make sure that the archetype makes sense with us, because we have our own personalities, you know. Like Melody and I have very distinct, we're opinionated, we're honest with people, and that doesn't work for everybody. So it's a two-way street.
It's funny you say that, because I look back at my experience vetting clients, kind of similar, right? And like Melody said, like, you want every job, especially when you're starting a company and you're trying to figure out, you know, kind of your niche, if you will. But there's a builder in town, Rod Collum, who was kind of a mentor for me. And I was at a meeting with him, and he made the comment. He said, look, for us and you, I mean, it's very common that we could be with our clients for 3 years. I mean, I have a couple clients right now where it's like 2 years of design, 2.5 years of design, 2.5 year build. I mean, it's a 4.5 year project. And he said, was it like most marriages last like on average like 3 years or something? I don't know, so he's like, it's very common that, you know, our build is longer than most marriages like stay intact. And you think about just how important that is, that there's respect and coordination and understanding and expectation set with your client and yourself, because again, you think about how complex that relationship is, you know, over those few years. And I'm sure over time, that's something, you know, I look back at my business and when I ask guests, you know, what do you wish you knew when you started your business? I know for me, pricing's one thing, but understanding how to vet a client and make sure it's a good fit, you know, is just super key.
Absolutely. It's so important. Yeah.
And from your side, I mean, maybe this is design camp too, going back to design camp, like, were there things you learned there, maybe you've learned over the years, you're looking back saying, I wish I knew this day one, you know, and here we are finding this out now.
Yeah, definitely. I think Clara just mentioned it. I only thought about it this year, believe it or not. I was thinking, what is our ideal client? And I started writing down some of our projects that we done that I'm like, okay, it went perfectly. And it did go perfectly, but I think it was because the relationship was perfect. It was a good fit. So therefore everything worked. They got along with our contractor. You know, they respected our, you know, being professionals and taking the lead, basically. I think that's super important. And I think I learning from design camp and one of the keynote speakers spoke about it. She said, "Oh, my ideal client is, two professionals." And I was like, wow, I think that's mine too. So I do keep that in mind, but at the same time, I'm always open, and I'm just because somebody doesn't work in the family doesn't mean to say that I'm not going to take them seriously as a client. But I do think for us, that's an ideal client, two working professionals, because we'll take the lead and they're busy working on their careers, whether, their parents and working on their businesses. And that's what we're there to do and to accomplish a task for them and complete a project for them.
Yeah. And it's really interesting too, just like our personalities. It's so funny. I left design camp feeling like, oh, well, there's people that are a little bit ahead of us, but there's people that are far behind. And she came back, she's like, we're doing everything wrong. So it's just sort of funny. Like, design camp was good to shed light on things like that. I think, it's sort of like, okay, where am I at in the spectrum of what it means to be a designer today and in our town, which is, like we said, it's a smaller pool, but, I think we're excited for our new shop that's opening to have events and spread that kind of love and have other people have us as a resource. And we would have loved to have gone to something like what we're creating early on in our careers. And so I think kind of gathering all that information and applying it has sort of set us up for the next step as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting you say that because, so truth be told, so Lindsay may know this, she may not, but when I had her on maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I'm not sure when it was, but she was doing design camp, and that inspired me, like in speaking with her and just collaborating to do like our contractor coalition summit, which is essentially very similar. We meet at a destination, we have, 30, 40 builders come, and it's very similar. We're diving through a lot of the same things you do at design camp, just focus on the construction side. And what's interesting is you get a lot of feedback, right? And you get a lot of understanding and things. Oh, I can apply this and this education. But a big thing at these events are you collaborate with other builders. You're collaborating with other designers at design camp. And you both leave with different ideas. Melody's like, we got to change all this stuff. And Claire's like, we're in a good spot. It's good to understand. But the thing is, I'm sure there's a lot of relationships that were built that now you have more collaboration on, especially as you build to the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah. And it's okay to run your business differently from another design firm. I think I was just emotional and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing everything wrong. Where was the list of checklist? But I think I've learned that we are creating a little bit of a different business, still same results as another design firm, but we just have a different way of doing it and it works for us. Because you can't do everything on your own. And I am so lucky to have Clara on my design team and then have a full construction company there to support all our projects. And then now a shop to facilitate, all the logistics of our orders and that. And then offer, of course, retail for the public. So it's exciting,
And Melody's ability to have a team and keep good people around her was actually one of the things that ignited our love story. So I've always admired that about her. She's very good about finding a person that's good at what they do and honest and fair and easy to work with and kind of keep them around and make sure she's feeding them business and making sure that they're, feeling welcome in our team, whether or not they install wallpaper 2-3 times a year or if they're creating homes and making projects come to life. She's really good about weeding those people out.
Well, I want to get into that because I think that's a unique talent, Melody, to be able to understand and collaborate and then have trust and empowerment, right, with your people. It's definitely a unique skill set. I want to get into the shop too, but before we do that, how did you two meet? I mean, especially Claire, from your side, the relationship with House of Four, Melody, and how that began and then, to what it is now.
Yeah, no, we laugh about this all the time. This is like when we go out and have wine, we laugh about this. But from my perspective, I had graduated architecture school in San Francisco. I really always wanted to come back to Las Vegas. And for years, I had followed Melody on Instagram. And I always enjoyed her content because she was very, she was on project sites and she was, showing things getting installed. And I was working at a really high-end commercial / residential firm. And it was super you know, it was a feather in my cap, and I felt like, wow, I really went out there and got out there in the design world. And at the end of the day, I was sitting at a desk all day, and I never saw any of these wonderful projects come to life. And, you know, some of the projects were being shot on, you know, for Vogue, and I had never stepped foot in them. So it's sort of hard to have a romance story with a project when you've never stepped foot in it, and really you're just sort of applying other people's decisions. It's not very inspiring for a young creative who's like trying to break into the business, but I really learned a lot. Like I said, I'm so grateful because I taught myself AutoCAD and all these other things that set me up for when I came home, because I was so sick of living in San Francisco. I reached out to her and I said, hey, like, I don't know if you're hiring. This is my resume. You know, I really would love to work for you. I don't know if you're even interested in that. And so this is the part of the story where we laugh, because I always tease. I'm like, she never called me back for like months, you know, and it was at such an insecure time for me because I had moved home. I was still doing some remote work, so it wasn't like I didn't have a job, but I really wanted to break into something at home, be on project sites, really help somebody build something up and put some blood, sweat and tears and sweat equity and really kind of create that. But I always joke, I'm like, I manifested Melody. I don't know if she realizes that, you know, if I could have dreamt of my dream position at that time, it was what I was doing. But she has another side of that story, which actually she just shared with me recently.
Yeah. I mean, I'm obviously, it's such an honor that, and I feel like it's divine. It's meant to be that Clara reached out, and I'm so grateful for her. She really is part of my family. I think at the time I definitely was doing everything on my own, and I have always struggled with confidence, being sure of myself. So for me, it was just a matter of, wow, do I have enough projects, enough stability to bring on another person onto my team and be responsible for them, and have enough opportunities, and struggling really to believe in myself. So it took me a little while to reply back. And honestly, when Clara sent her resume, I was like, wow, why would she want to work for me? Like, do I have enough going on? But then when we did meet, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is meant to be. Our personalities were in line, and, you know, she's really helped to grow our business, and I consider her part of my business. And we've done so many exciting projects together. So it's wonderful to have that, because it can be lonely doing it on your own. And I don't miss those days. Yeah. So I'm super grateful to have her on my team.
Oh, thanks, Mel.
Well, it's interesting. I think there's a lot of points there to dissect. Is that, you know, as a business owner, Melody, it's really tough to know, am I at the right position to hire? Am I ready to hire? Do I have the confidence? Do I have the systems? Whatever it may be. And more importantly, I mean, you're probably like many of us, when you bring someone on, you care about the person. You don't want to just bring someone on, hire them to fire them. Like, you want to have the work and the bandwidth and, you know, the runway, if you will. Right. And,
absolutely,
you know, it's a fine balance, you know, and part of that too is just understanding that if I bring someone talented like Claire on, well, that's going to allow me different clientele. It's going to allow me more versatility. And so it can open up doors that may not have been there in the past. Right. And then from like Claire's side, it's like, well, I've been big on this forever on this podcast, like chase experience, not money. She's chasing experience. She's realizing that it's not fulfilling, her ideal, career path. But at the end of the day, she's gaining tremendous experience. And now she can apply that as she takes her vision board and she gets to the company. And now here you are. Now you have everything rolling. And there's so much behind the scenes to the success you both have had today. How has that changed? Bringing Claire on, right? I'm sure there was some understanding of roles. How have you really understood your roles to be successful? Because you have amazing energy, you have amazing coordination and chemistry, which is not common, right? So how have you done that, especially as you've kind of learned each other's, strength and weaknesses per se?
Yeah. I mean, I just think it was very organic and still is organic. Clara and I are about 25 years apart. So Clara is an old soul, and she knows that about herself. So we get along really very well. And obviously, we love design and we have very similar aesthetics. So I think that's really important. And the energy, between us, it's because it's a tough business. There are just so many things that you have to balance and manage on a daily, basis. Yeah.
Well, and I'll say about Melody, she's an A-type, will do the best, will work harder, will stay longer. That's her personality. And at the beginning, I think she had a hard time sort of letting go some of her responsibilities, because why would she? Because she's the one that made it happen. She's the reason we have clients that come back and the Instagram's so successful, and she built all this. So when you built it to a certain point, it's hard to let go of some of that. And especially when you're a creative person, like we joke all the time, like we share the responsibility pretty much of social media. And when she does something, it's like you get a little possessive of things. Like we laughed this morning. She's like, I think I got 45,000 followers before you took over Instagram. But it's just funny. It's a creative person thing, and we're close enough with each other where if something comes up, we can get through it. But yeah, no, definitely, I think like working through what things you were willing to like release a little bit of control over. But I think it's helped us grow. When she had a little bit more time to focus on other things and not worrying about getting something rendered, I'm like, I got that. I'll put the presentation together. I'll render it. You worry about making sure it's a fabulous furnishing composition and making sure the finishes all work with each other. Double check my work. Like we definitely feed off of each other. So that's evolved and grown over time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I really love that. And you can just see how you speak about each other, right? That there's that chemistry, which is huge. And again, that, plays hand in hand. Why the shop? This is really tough as a business, you want to expand and grow, whatever that means to each individual. And there's complexities in run design business, but now you have more complexities opening your own shop and retail space. The thought behind it. And you alluded to this earlier about events, right? So there's collaboration you intend to do, so how does this play a role just arm in arm with what you're doing now?
Well, we partnered up with our general contractor. So we are all owners of a shop that we're busy building right now. It should be opening up in a couple of months. But it came to a point where we were all working out of our homes. I have a little studio, part of an extension of my home. And, with the furniture, or the deliveries coming in, storage was an issue. There was an issue for my general contractor too. And I have been doing all my furniture orders through my friend, who I'm super grateful for, but I was starting to outgrow that. So we kind of all got together and decided, let's, do this together. And yeah, it's scary too, but we are hoping that we're our own best clients. And then of course, we'll be open to the public as well.
Yeah.
But our offices will run out of it. We'll have control of our receivables too. And having more control over that and making sure that, all the boxes are checked off for our projects, I think is super important, and to be able to grow a team to facilitate that as well. Yeah. So that we can do things that really are important, that are more important for us to continue doing and running the business and growing the business.
And another thing that gave us confidence with that, like Melody mentioned, like kind of the business plan is, we run this amount through the companies anyways. And if we become dealers of these things, these products that we love and put in every house, our general contractor, he said, by the fifth, rep that told me I'm their best client, I'm starting to think, okay, well, if I'm everybody's best client, like why shouldn't I be my own best client? So we're definitely, we're all very seasoned in those areas, and Melody's worked really hard building relationships with Sub-Zero, relationships with all these other, for years, Serena and Lily, like she's always been very loved by those brands because she believes in them, uses them. And we think that's why clients trust us, because we're not just putting in a faucet that we would never use. We're putting in stuff that we use and love all the time. So I think it's hopefully going to grow a culture in it of its own, because we can't service everybody. And we have people reach out that just want, to accessorize the shelves in their bathroom. And, we're a little beyond that at this point, but of course we would love to do it on a Saturday if we were just hanging out and we were girlfriends, but we're not, so it's definitely a way to service people that want to hire us, but maybe can't, people that maybe like some of our stuff, but wouldn't necessarily hire us to do everything for their home, and professionals, other professionals. There's, Las Vegas, we have big, beautiful $1 billion projects on the Strip. And we have horrible showrooms. We have nothing inspiring to go to. We have nobody tries. Everybody throws up the rack with all the samples and calls it a day. And we care a little bit more about that experience. So
Yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting. So it sounds like, I mean, of course, well, maybe we break this down a little bit. I know from a designer side, like people don't realize a lot of these companies that you're purchasing for your clients, like they can't deliver to a residential address. So that's one problem because they can't get their big trucks in the residential neighborhoods. You need like a commercial address, right? And so delivery, you know, handling is a big thing, storage. And as you mentioned, the inventory when it comes, tracking it and making sure it's not damaged. I mean, there's a lot of complexity when you're putting, I don't know, 100, 200, 300 pieces in a house. It can be very complex. So I understand that aspect, you know, especially the complication, the design that you run, but the retail side. So it's interesting is so ideally, not only do you have your own clientele, but you may pick up some retail customers that'll come in and then purchase, which helps your buying power and everything else as you're building your brand.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Our showroom will be selling, it basically is a one-show stop. So we'll be selling everything from cabinetry to countertops to tile, plumbing, furnishings, decor, textiles, artwork. So yeah, we're really excited that we'll be able to offer that to our community.
Yeah, and it was important to us to have a section where there is merchandise that you can go home with, but obviously we know we can't put every cabinet that, you know, exists in every plumbing fixture, although our GC and our partner has tried to fit as much plumbing fixtures as he can into this showroom, and we had to cut them off. But, you know, we wanted it to feel like a home. The showroom total square footage is about 7,000 square feet. And then we have 4,500 square feet of finished space, ceilings. And it's set up like a home. You know, kind of if you walk the perimeter, we have a kitchen vignette, a family room vignette, a dining room vignette. And along kind of the spine of the build out, we have our different departments. We have a wood flooring department, tile department, plumbing department, and then accent lighting department. So all of that's going on. And then we have our offices. You know, it's quite a lot to fit in, but we think it's going to, you know, really show people like what you can do. And maybe you just stop in, you're looking for wood floors, but hey, maybe you want to try that paneled wall. And, you know, it's stuff like that. We're there to inspire. We're definitely there to sell things that you can grab and go, but we're also there to sell and showcase things that we love and use all the time that people are always asking us for.
So inspiration behind that, because I'd imagine, I mean, there is definitely a revenue side, right? Which is important in any company. You have to be able to, you know, pay the bills and sustain and everything else that goes in being a business owner. How do you see that as like building the brand and just your relationships, as you mentioned, like with vendors and partners and architects in the design community itself?
Yeah. House of Play and Company will be an extension of our brand, House of Four Design, and our business partner is C&M. So it's definitely an extension of those services and the looks that we love to create and bring in. And we'll, you know, Claire and I love to go shopping. So the showroom will definitely be.
Who doesn't, right?
Yeah, exactly. Our showroom, our shop will be an extension of that. And, you know, we'll be able to be creative on what we're showcasing and bringing in new merchandise for our shop. So that's really exciting. And so I think as a brand, we're trying to connect those three, but the House of Play and Company will be the retail end of the business.
Yeah, and it was a way for us to showcase what we do. And I actually, going back to the very beginning as well, when I first went to Melody's house, it wasn't this house, it was the house before, but I said, I don't feel like I'm in Las Vegas. You know, Las Vegas has really struggled for years with what its identity is because of the casinos. You know, people, they build custom homes and they have it look like a casino, you know, because they don't know what else to do. There's no other inspiration. We don't have these 100-year-old, 200-year-old homes with all this character. Like, we're really having white boxes that we're injecting with character. And so for us, I think kind of seeing that in person, for me, it was important to see her home in person versus on Instagram, because you get the feel. So a big inspiration for doing the build out and doing the beautiful, you know, finishes in a warehouse at the end of the day, it's to create that feel so people get it, you know, like, oh, that's why you spend $100,000 on a kitchen, you know, because you walk in and you feel good, and it changes, you know, to Melody's point earlier, like it changes your life, you know, the way you move throughout a space. I mean, I know working from her home has always been so inspirational because you don't feel like you're in Las Vegas, and you know, you can pretend you're, you know, in Italy somewhere.
Yeah. get inspired by our trips for sure.
Yeah, I think I can relate because, we are pretty fortunate in Scottsdale now, and it's evolved. Design's evolved. There's amazing designers, and, the architecture here is changing, but probably similar to you. What's tough about the desert area, kind of in new communities, there's a lot of tract homes. We had to de-Tuscanize because that Tuscan style was like so common everywhere. So I'm sure that's opened up some opportunities. So for you, as you think about marketing strategy, you mentioned that you're doing something right because you get a lot of repeat clients. So there's a personality and design aesthetic that you have that relates to them, an emotional journey, right? Where do you find other clients? How does that clientele, how are you marketing to them?
Yeah, a lot of our clients that I personally experienced that come from different parts of the country. So we have a lot of East Coast clients, a lot of California clients, and they are definitely looking for design that what they are used to. And I personally appreciate, I love classic design. So we'll do, projects where we'll focus on paneled walls and bring in ceiling treatments and bring in those details. And it's just going to make the furniture and the decor shine, obviously. So I think that's important. And I personally remember moving to Las Vegas, and I wasn't in the design business at the time. I actually was a dancer in a show on the Strip, a professional dance show. And I was lucky enough to buy my first home, and it was just a tract home, but I was super proud and excited, and it was a lot of money for me at the time. And I remember asking, the tract when I went to the design center, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? And it was all no's. And I remember taking that and going, wait, I'm going to do this myself. And I customized as much as I could with my dancer career budget, and did that home to home and basically fell in love with the design. And I was like, well, me and my contractor, we can offer this to potential clients, which is kind of how we created our two companies and grew it. So there definitely was a lack of that. I personally felt it. And it is just being fun to take that personal journey and be able to offer it to other people. And
yeah, we're definitely like an ally and a resource for people that want that look in town, because people will tell you no. Yeah, we have clients that we did, their full home, and they did the backyard kind of without us, and then they came back. They said, "Well, we shouldn't have done it without you. We're going to do it right this time, right? Will you come with us to our appointment?" And the pool builder, he wants to do the same thing he's done for years. And it's, he's like, oh, this is really popular. And we're like, yeah, because nobody else knows what to do. And he fought us.
He got a chuckle out of us. Yeah. Too. We try and make it as fun as possible, these appointments.
Oh, for sure. But we were like, we really want white brick. And he's like, you can't do white brick. That'll look terrible. And then, of course, we're like pulling up pictures. We're like, that looks terrible. And the wife's like, no, I want that. I love that. And he fought us for, I would think, the whole half-hour meeting. And then he put it into his rendering software and he said, actually, that looks pretty good. So, it's that's another benefit of hiring us,
designer,
I think, specifically in town, because we're going to, if someone's telling you no, you're asking the wrong person. So,
yeah. And also as designers, we are being helpful to the contractor or the pool builder for sourcing. He, for example, was like, I can't do white brick. No, you're not going to do white brick. And he would have other ideas. Well, what about this porcelain? It looks like brick. And we're like, no, that does not look like brick, sir.
That looks like tile.
So, I think it's our city's changing, our town is changing, and it's fun to be able to help and bring that service not only to pool builders, but also to our clients, obviously, and help them create that look that they really have in their mind, but they're constantly getting told no, like I was getting told when I first built my first home. So,
and to shape the city is like such a cool thing. Like, it's kind of fun. I keep saying it'll be a cool day, a sad day, but a cool day. Like when you see a project we've done go up on Zillow, like to me, that's kind of cool. Like you're shaping the city a little bit, inch by inch, but
yeah.
We're making
what needs it? Vegas needs it. It needs your talent and expertise. There's no doubt.
Thanks.
Thanks.
So before we end this, what inspired you to get into design? For you, Clara, like what inspired you to go to architecture school and get into design? And Melody, it sounds like, you maybe didn't know about this career path and then realized, hey, I'm really talented. Here we go.
Yeah. When I went to school, there was no schools for designers. So I grew up in South Africa, and there was definitely signs. I didn't understand them at the time, and nobody in my family was in the design business or a contractor or anything. But I did fully design my bedroom as a little girl, and did a custom paint color. And I remember my mom saying, "It's the only pretty room in the house." Is my daughter. I had two sisters as well. So I think there was always those signs, and I did a lot of dance classes growing up, and eventually became a professional dancer. So I did a lot of traveling through my dance career, and also went to college at the same time. And I got to live in Europe and Asia and Japan, and had all these wonderful experiences, and fell in love with design, but never knew that, I could figure it out how to do it on my own. So finally I did land up in Las Vegas in a show on the Strip, and bought my first home and started working on it, and really loved that process, and sold it. And then the next home I did it again, and next home I did it again after that. So learned so much through those experiences. And I do remember, asking, different people, I was close to the time, do you think I could be a designer? Could I do something like this? And it was a lot of like, nope, I don't think that's in your cards, So there was a lot of rejection in that way, which
so sad.
It's sad because that's the one thing that I always encourage young people, or it doesn't even matter if you're, have had two careers already. If there's something that you feel passionate about, definitely go for it, because it's okay to have several careers like myself. I feel like every career I had, I did learn something from it, and I could bring that to my business that I have now. So I think for me, it was just a journey and experience, and no regrets there. It definitely was my journey, whereas Claira's was so different from mine.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Any creative person you talk to, especially an interior designer, we have very similar stories. Like I said, I had a dream house box. I was always artistic, but I had a dream house box, and I would cut things out, and I made my mom get me graph paper, and I was drawing floor plans, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a U-shaped house. And my mom's like, okay, whatever. I lived in the same house, my whole childhood, and I was constantly redoing my room. I would steal my mom's bed cover and put it in my room, and she was like, no, give that back. Even family members, I would say, oh, Mom, their bedroom is we need to go and remodel their bedroom. And my mom would take me to do it. I actually look back, I think it's kind of funny because she enjoys it too. But I've just always been that way. And my mom, actually, she had more kids when I was 12. So I have twin sisters, and she just wanted to get out of the house. And she took an architecture class at the community college, and it was right around the time I was going to school. And she said, this is really artistic. And I'd always done art, and I loved art. I loved to paint. I loved to, draw. I love all that stuff. And she said, I think you should consider this for college, because I'm not sending you to interior design school. I'm just not. She said, you can go to architecture school, and then you can work as an interior designer. That's fine. And it ended up being the best career advice, second to my dad saying, you will go work and intern for the best design firm in your college city. Those two coupled together, it really set me up to be able to come back and kind of demand what I want, whether or not it was going to happen. She could have said, no, I don't want to work with you, or I'm not looking to hire, and it would have changed my trajectory. But all that stuff really gave me the confidence, because I was so intentional about, this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to spend my time. And I had the luxury of working at a small firm with a toxic boss, and working at a big firm with a great boss. But so I've done all those things early on in my career, which is why I feel so happy and content and grateful to be where I am today. And Melody's allowed me to sort of spread my wings and kind of get further than I might have otherwise. She laughs all the time. She says, Claira, really? You're going to make me sell this $5,000 sink to the clients? And I'm like, well, it's so gorgeous. So that's definitely like our paths, but the story's still being written. So, yeah.
Well, I think what's important from both your stories, I mean, the same thing is true is passion, right? If you have passion for it, if you believe in it, it doesn't matter whether you're told no or whether you have a different career path. I mean, it's brought that together. So that's pretty neat to hear. So what do you both do for fun outside of design?
Well, we're both family orientated. I have 2 kids, so I love to spend time with them where I can. So keep busy there. We love to go to restaurants. Lucky enough, we live in an amazing city with gorgeous, amazing restaurants, amazing chefs.
Yeah.
A lot of good food.
A lot of good food.
Love to travel when we can, for inspiration and just to kind of get out of the city. Super important.
We're definitely family, design. I mean, we're workaholics. We really are. Like, we like to just continue hanging out at the end of the day, and we'll move on to Melody's dining room. She'll say, "What about this wallpaper?" And then we're like, "Oh yeah, that'll look fantastic with that noir sideboard." So that's fun for us too. Like, we really whistle while we work, I would say. Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's amazing. And I know what's upcoming and exciting. You have this amazing showroom that'll be finished, your new office. Anything else to share?
Yeah, it's exciting. Well, we have some tons of projects that we're excited to hopefully be finishing up soon, construction-wise, and some new ones that we're in design. So that's exciting. Hopefully we'll be sharing more of that soon in the future.
Yeah.
And
we'll be hitting it hard with marketing for House Supply & Co. and getting that business up and running and making sure we're tending to all of our babies. And and we're going to be working really hard this next year. So hopefully it looks like it at the end of it.
Well, we're super excited to follow along. So where can our listeners find you?
We're House of Four Design on Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. We have a TikTok. It needs a little love, but definitely, Instagram's probably the number one spot you want to go, and Pinterest, where we definitely try to keep up on our Pinterest. So
yeah, and our website is houseoffourdesign.com.
Yes. And the website.
Well, Melody and Claire, you've been amazing. Grateful to have met you at the Sub-Zero showroom, and grateful that you made time to come on the podcast today. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Much.